I actually have to have my band on my wheel the right way or it just won't spin. That's no good either, is it? Nope. All right, we'll go a little higher. Woo! All right. Monkey, you're gonna come sit by me. You're gonna watch the garbage truck. Come on. Good boy. Hi, welcome to FiberLoveDiary. I'm Trish if we haven't met, and if we have met, welcome back to my tribe. How are you? I'm gonna do another Q&A. I liked it so much last time. It was so fun just spinning and hanging out with you guys. I'm going to answer questions. I've been saving them since the last one and just putting them on this very professional sheets of paper. Luther's right here. You can't actually see him, but here he is. See, hi. And I'm gonna spin one of these the sock set that I dyed for Valentine's Day. I thought I better get on it or it might not be done in time. So, although socks go so fast, my plan is to, just so you know what's going on with the spinning, and I will show it, I promise. In fact, my goal, you guys, inset video of the spinning like right here. We'll see how it works. I don't know. It's the first day of my new job. I'm excited, but also feeling so pressed for time, but you know, it's like that all the time. Like, there's really never a perfect time to start something new. You just have to figure it out, right? So here we go. Let's answer some questions. So I have it spinning really fast too. I'm gonna spin it with a worsted draft because I want the socks to be a little tougher, and it is still floating in front of me. If you missed the dyeing video, I will link that in the description box. And I'm going to have it spinning really fast. I have a really fast bobbin and whirl in this wheel because I really want it to spin tightly for socks. So let's start with questions. Are you ready? I'm so ready. Last, I don't know, summer probably, I did a video where I unboxed a raw Fin Fleece, and I got a couple questions on that one. And the two questions on that one are, is the wool unwashed but skirted? So that fleece was skirted. Also, the other question was, how much fleece do you need for a rug? That's a little bit like bring me a rock. How much fleece for a rug depends on how you want to create the rug. Do you want to spin it? Is it actually like a pelt rug? How are you gonna weave it? Or I guess you could crochet or knit a rug. I don't know if I'd knit a rug, but I'm sure there are people who do it. So I can't really answer that without knowing more about like size and all that kind of thing. But I think it's a really interesting idea, and I've seen people use the peg looms to make them, and it looks pretty cool. The results are beautiful, and I think also it would be cool to hang that on the wall. But I don't know, I'm sorry. The next question is more of a recommendation. So one of you recommended the book Mindset to me by Carol Dweck. I have read it. I think I've actually read it twice, and I'm reading it again. One thing that I've noticed, and it's about like maybe the last 3 years, I've been really working on some of the mindset things that I have. And when I say things, I mean things that I don't consider to be good. Things I'd like to change, things I'd like to do better, all that kind of stuff. And her book was really, really good, but I started with, you know, I can't tell you what book I started with, and for me it kind of built. I read several books and then things just started to come together for me, and it's kind of like as soon as you become aware of some of those or unhealthier thought patterns, that's the first step, and then you can start working on them. So the first book that I think started to really change things for me profoundly in the area of mindset was The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I read that because I read a Heather Ash Amara book. I can't remember what it was called. Mindset is amazing, and if there's stuff that you really want to work on or whatever, it's a great place to start. So thank you. Right now, I actually just finished one called 13 things mentally strong people don't do, and I can't remember the author, but I'll put it on the screen below. That book was really good. I saw so much of myself in it, so much of the things that I need to work on. And you know, one thing that I really liked is that she actually does tell you how to work on it. Like, so many of them are like, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, this isn't good, this is bad. But how do you actually change the way you think? And I felt like she really gave me some ideas of how I could actually go about working on it, because that's the challenging part, right? A lot of us know what we need to work on, we just don't really know how. All right, so next, Brenda, hi Brenda, asked, what dyes do I use? So I get asked about dye a lot. I think if you're a beginner and you want to do, really anybody, I think Kool-Aid and especially gel food coloring dyes are really good options if you don't want to use something that's not, I mean, I don't want to, that's not like certified food safe. The dyes that I do use are non-toxic, but they're irritants if you breathe in the powdered form. I don't really feel that comfortable using them with like utensils or whatever that we're gonna eat with. And I don't know exactly where that's coming from. Maybe I don't trust it deep down, I don't know. For the acid dyes that I use, I've tried a bunch of different ones. I would have to say that Chem is emerging as my favorite. There are a bunch of different brands, and I've tried 3 of the major ones, which are Jacquard, and Dharma has its own line that you can only buy through Dharma Trading Company. And the third one that I've used is Chem. There are other ones, and I have tried a few other ones like Country Classics and, you know, different ones. For a long time, Jacquard was my favorite. And then Dharma came out with their own line, like I said, and I tried a bunch of them because they're more affordable, and they also have some colors that I kind of feel like I don't want to say duplicate, but I can't come close enough to on the other lines, and I still feel that way about at least 2 colors. I've never had a problem with Jacquard dyes. They're great. What I have found is that they're the most expensive ones that I know of, but they're good. And there are a few colors that are just to die for. The color situation is kind of the situation with all of them. So that's the situation with Jacquard. That's the first acid dye I've ever tried. I have found that it works great with white vinegar. It works great with citric acid. And so I have no complaints, except for they're kind of expensive and they can be hard to find, the colors that you want sometimes. There are a few colors, especially Aztec Gold, which is probably my absolute favorite color of Jacquard, and maybe Spruce, that I'll probably never try to match or be able to match or stop buying from Jacquard. So no matter what. Dharma dyes I have found to be quite inconsistent in some ways, and I don't mind dyes that break sometimes or do different things. Like, unpredictability is not necessarily my enemy, but there are times when you want to know how to make sure you get the color that you paid for, if that makes sense. And I've found a lot of Dharma dyes break. They've done some weird things when I store them in stock form. Like, there's a green that I really like when I mix it up, but if I store it in stock form, it separates into like a different green and then some kind of like bright orangey gold, kind of like little, it gets little chunks in it of, that sounds so gross, but then if you try to use the stock, you will get these like orange dots in the middle of the green. And my personal opinion is that it's too inconsistent for me. I've also found a couple colors that no matter what I do, I can't get them to strike properly. So I actually gave some away to somebody else who said they didn't mind, but I don't feel comfortable with dyes that won't exhaust. Every dyer occasionally maybe uses too much or whatever and has like slight bleeding, but I'm talking about mostly rinsing out. And so I don't buy those anymore, but I have 2 favorite colors that I'll probably have to buy for the rest of my life there, and they are Berry Crush and Poinsettia. They both do strike fine as long as you heat them enough. They actually strike, it seems to me, at a higher temp. So I just keep that in mind when I use them, but I can't find anything quite like them in the other lines. Otherwise I would be like, bye. I mean, just telling the truth. The last is Chem. I have started using them very recently. I just did a video that you'll probably see coming up in a little while. The Paradise Fibers dyeing kind of got in the lineup before. So the Chem dyes, I bought my first box of them in the fall, and I just kind of like picked a sampling of colors because I didn't know really what I was gonna like. And I love them. I have yet to find one that doesn't dye up consistently, that the stock doesn't store nicely, that they don't strike really well and really nicely. And I feel like I can use less dye to make a very vibrant stock. I'm trying to find dupes for all my favorite colors in Chem, and I bought a color card so that I can just kind of work my way through. I just made my second order, got a bunch of new colors. That was what the video was about. Their navy is the best navy I've ever used. So, and I know that might sound weird, but the Dharma navy breaks, I think I showed you guys once, it breaks so strangely. It actually breaks into like a dark navy and then an orange. It is so weird and I hate that. So yeah, that's kind of the current story on dyes. I'm trying to build up my Chem collection because so far I've been absolutely 100% thrilled with every single dye I bought from them, and that's saying something because I am picky. Next. Oh, okay, so this was on my dish towels, the ones that I weave, and it was, could you serge then roll the hem on dish towels? You absolutely can. The last time that I hemmed dish towels, I actually zigzagged because I don't have a serger. I used to, and then when we moved, I don't know what happened to it. It's almost like it never got to the house. It's weird. But like, it's not like the moving men would steal a serger. You know what I mean? But I don't know where it is. And it's definitely not in this house. I did do that last time. I thought maybe it would make things like just a little bit more stable for when I am folding and ironing the hem to actually sew, but I don't think it really helped that much. I think next time I might try it again and make the zigzag like a little tighter so that it can't spread apart as much, but it would be nice if it helps me more. And I've heard so many suggestions. People give me suggestions that are like huge extra steps. It's not that dire. I mean, they actually hem up really easily. So you absolutely can. I can't say it doesn't help at all. I don't think it helped me hugely, but I think it did help some. Drum carder recommendation, hand crank versus electric, pros and cons. Great question. I understand that there is a Clemis and Clemis carder that you can switch back and forth, which I did not know about until recently. So I started out with a hand crank one and it was great. It was an Ashford carder. It was a wonderful carder and it wasn't a problem. It made probably like maybe 1 ounce bats, I would say. Maybe I could cram 2 on it if I was really trying. It did a great job and it was like the medium coarseness. As I kind of like moved on and I washed more fleece by hand and I carded more fleece, I felt like the good thing about it, especially when I'm buying a raw fleece, the good thing about the electric drum carders is that it can run and pull in the last batch of fleece that you've picked as you're picking the next bit. So I felt like it kind of helped me cut down on time a little bit. And also, I don't think the hand crank ones come as big. Like, I don't even think you can buy that giant jumbo brother in a hand crank version. I could be wrong though about that. You know, if you want to save some time, I think it's a pro to get a motor. It's one of the cons is that it's way more expensive to get the motorized ones. You know, I'm kind of on the fence. I'm somebody who believes really get the best you can afford, and really with any kind of hobby equipment, there are always those people who like buy all the best brand new and then barely use it and end up turning around and selling it. We all know someone like that. And then selling it for like half the price. So I like to just watch all the groups for used equipment. I bought that Brother Drum Carder new, but aside from the very first carder I got that was a gift, I have not ever bought a new one because there's always somebody out there who finds that they don't have time or they just don't really use it, and the price is right, baby. That's why I have so many toys, because I am a bargain hunter. I think one nice thing about the hand crank is that they're a little easier to control the speed on. And by that I mean, when you're trying to card a very fine fleece, you really want everything to go super slow. And the reason for that is because if it's a very fine one and it stretches as the big card passes the little, as the big drum passes the little drum, the fiber will stretch, but if it snaps or breaks, it like curls back up on itself and makes those little noils, and it's not good. And so the faster it goes, the more likely it is to pull and snap a lot and make those little noils. I just think maybe that control is a pro, the price is a pro. You know, for me, I do card kind of vast amounts and I make a lot of bats and things like that, so the electric one is a better choice for me, but everyone's different. You all have a different priority. Okay, so somebody asked what I was spinning on in the last video. That was, what was I spinning on in the last video? Oh, I was spinning on some Rambouillet, I think, that I dyed for myself. And it was like, what was the yarn going to be used for? It came out to be about a sport weight. I think I'm going to weave with it, and it'll come up in a future video, but it turned out pretty cool. I did knit a sample, and I think it's nice, but I think it might actually be a lot prettier if I weave it. So that's what I was spinning in the last video. I did show it, and again, it looks like I'm getting video of this, so you'll get to see this too. Okay, last, Gail posted that she got an antique spinning wheel and it was missing a part. And Gail, I had recommended Bobbin Boy, so he's in the Carolinas. I can't remember for sure. I want to say it's North Carolina, but I'm not 100% sure. But if you want to send me a picture, I will at least try and tell you what's missing. I mean, I would trust him to tell me what's missing and help me figure out how to get it going, but I could at least look at it. I'm not an expert on antique wheels, but send me a picture via email, FiberLoveDiary@gmail.com, and I will tell you what I know about it, if anything. And if I don't know or I need more pictures, I'll tell you that. So there were some questions on the last couple of videos. I'm gonna go through those. Okay, so I love how you dye. Can I ask if you always put a lid on? There was more to the question, but that's the gist of it. I pretty much always use a lid. The only exception to that really is if I have the fiber fully submerged in like a bath, so I have like an immersion dyeing instead. I do that more often with locks, although I do it with like top and stuff like that sometimes. If I have less water in the pan like I did for this last dyeing video, I would say I always put a lid on, because deep down I have this fear, and I don't know if it's even justified or not. Deep down I have the fear that if I don't cover it and keep the evaporation down, that it might scorch. I do leave them on the stove for between 20 and 30 minutes, just depending on how much dye, which dyes, all that kind of stuff. And then I usually check them and see, do they need more time? Are they done? All that kind of thing. Occasionally I can go down to 15 minutes, but when I have such a small amount of water, there is a part of me that's always like, what if you scorch it? If I cover it, I know I'm gonna keep the moisture in. And then also, I think it heats more evenly if it's covered. So it kind of keeps the heat in too. So yes, I pretty much do. I used to use plastic wrap and I hated it and I felt guilty about it, and I finally bought myself stainless lids for the steam pans. So actually, I'll link those lids and those pans below on Amazon. So if you want them or need them, you can get them. Next, Rachel Hogan asked, I'm curious, do you recommend dyeing before spinning or after? That is like a huge question. I find that I do not really enjoy spinning plain white fiber. I mean, I occasionally do because I need it for something, but it just isn't my favorite thing. And so for me, I almost always dye first. it also just really depends on how do you want your finished yarn to come out. And you know, I could go through examples for that, but that is just a huge topic because there are so many options and so many ways that you can change it and control it and, you know, reconfigure it and all that. So for me, usually I dye before, and it's pretty much just because I get very bored spinning plain white roving. There is an exception to that. I actually spin a lot of natural colored roving without dyeing it, and I like that. I don't know why I'm okay with like 20 bobbins of gray, but not so okay with 20 bobbins of white, but I am. That's just kind of how I am. But you can do either, and I don't have a recommendation for it being better before or after. It's totally personal preference and how you want your yarn to turn out. And I mean, honestly, I could do an hour and a half on that and still not barely touch any of the options. So, okay, so why citric acid? All those acid dyes that I mentioned need dye added to either the dye bath or the dye itself or the soak in order to make the dye bond to the fibers. I have always used white vinegar before. It does smell. I mean, it doesn't smell horrible, but I mean, have you ever smelled hot vinegar? It really gets inside your nose. And like I said, that citric acid was actually given to me, so I thought I'd try it out. I'll probably stick with it just because it doesn't smell, which I really do like. So, but you can use white vinegar right from your grocery store, just straight. I've used it in many, many dyeing videos, and it works great, and it's simple and it's food safe, so that's awesome. Whatever makes you happy makes me happy. Okay, so this says I have a question. So once it dried, did you put it through a drum carder, or is it just that fluffy when it is dry? So I think that's a great question. This question was specifically on the last dyeing video for the Paradise Fiber sock blend, which is actually what I'm spinning right now. It does fluff up that much. Some of the fibers kind of like compact more than others, and Targhee is one that really fluffs up a lot when it dries out. The only thing that I do, and it's really totally unnecessary, it's just a personal preference of mine, is that once it's completely dry, I'll take like the long batch of fiber and just maybe gather it in 3 or 4 loops, and I'll just shake it. That just loosens it up just a little and fluffs it up just a little bit more. It might all be in my head too. That's not out of the realm of possibility and totally not out of the question. So, but I think it just makes it go poof. So, and I like that when you braid it and it's all fluffy, it looks so pretty. Okay, so this says, do you ever decide to spin first and dye second, or are you always pretty confident of how the dyed wool will translate into a finished project? So I did touch on this earlier, but it's a little different of a question. So am I always confident? Are you always pretty confident of how the dyed wool will translate into a finished project? Sort of. I don't know, how do I answer that? I am always confident that it will look beautiful somehow, but I don't always know when I'm dyeing it or even when I'm spinning it how I'm going to use it. That's kind of part of my like process, I guess. Sometimes I do plan, like in this case, I totally knew how I wanted these socks to come out. I want them to be gradient socks where they'll be red at the top and they'll go down to a pink toe. And I am very confident that this is going to work. The only thing I don't know for sure is how the colors will line up. I can always kind of finagle that during the knitting. Like I can pull a piece out of the middle and just, you know, whatever. So if I really think it's going off track, but I don't think it will. But part of my process in a lot of projects is just to dye something that I think is pretty, spin it in a way that I think is pretty, and then I could get an idea for how I want to use it at any point in time, and then let that kind of guide me from there. Am I confident? Pretty much, because over more than a decade now, I can pretty much figure out a way to use my different yarns, even if at first glance I don't think I like it. Or I maybe don't think it's beautiful for knitting, but it'll be beautiful in weaving. And that is actually one of the reasons I started to weave, because I had some hand spun yarns that I felt like when I knit them, they looked like, I mean, I hate this phrase, you hear it all the time, but they did look like clown barf when they were knit. But then if I took them and I wove them with a more neutral warp or weft, however it worked out, they would end up being really eye-catching, beautiful. The right things would pop out, all that would happen. So it's almost like a puzzle of how to best use the yarn to its advantage, find a pattern that doesn't compete, that really sets it off, or vice versa. If I find a pattern, find a yarn that doesn't compete and really shows that beautiful pattern. So it's a puzzle for my brain. Honestly, I think that's kind of one of the places where I'm very focused, is trying to match it all up and make all the puzzle pieces fit so that you get the best out of like your project, your time, your money, your fiber, your everything. That was a long answer to that question. Holy cow. Okay. Marty asked, what is the symbol on your ring finger? Just curious. I'm actually really surprised more of you guys don't ask about this, to be honest, because I get asked about it in real life a lot. John and I have our wedding rings tattooed on. When we were getting married, I mean, we've both been married before. I was 21 when I got married the first time, and I think he was 19. He got married like right out of high school, almost, and I was not much older. And when we were getting married, I really felt like two things. I kind of wanted to buck the system that I think it's just a marketing ploy probably by the diamond industry, that a woman is worth more if she receives a ring that's worth more, like you're valued more. I kind of wanted to buck that system, for one thing. I really wanted to, I don't know what the word, embrace that this is for life for us this time, or for me, that I couldn't just take the ring off, and that the important thing was that I was married to my best friend and not whether or not I had a big diamond or a big wedding or any of those things. His means emperor, and mine, when it's with his, means empress. That's what we got. We didn't even know. We showed up at a tattoo place to get our rings done, and we were like looking through books. I didn't know if I was gonna get like our initials entwined or what I was gonna do, and we looked at it and we were both like, do you want to just do this? And he was like, yeah, let's do it. We did not even Google what they were, so they could have meant like stupid and moron, and we would have walked out of there with big grins on our faces because we never even checked what they were. But we found out later that they were correct. So this is a great one, and I've had this one before, so I thought I'd add it. Hi Trish, have you ever pulled roving off your drum carder? I've seen some videos of it and was wondering if it would spin good. So I have done it. I have done it with a Diz, and I've also pulled roving off of my blending board with a Diz. I have found that, this is just an opinion, it doesn't really mean anything, but for me it's a pain. I don't enjoy it, and I don't think it spins any better than just taking the bad off and turning that into roving, and I've showed a bunch of different ways to do that. So I don't think it's worth the tears for me, but maybe because I didn't practice enough, I don't know. When I do it off of a blending board, I like it because I feel like it holds together a little bit better. So I do pull the roving off with a Diz when I make roving off my blending board. But you'll probably never see me do it off a drum carder. I just think it's a lot more trouble than it's worth, and it doesn't turn out better. Okay, so last question. I haven't seen much Firestar available in Australia. How is it different to Angelina? Is it different enough to be worth finding some to try? It kind of depends on what category you mean. In my opinion, it is pretty different. So Angelina comes in two different kinds. There's heat fusible, and then there is like non-heat fusible. And I could be wrong, but I think only one of those can be dyed. Maybe none of them can be dyed. They're not made out of the same material. And Angelina is like flat, and it's cut into super tiny little strips, like tinsel kind of. tinsel, yeah, or like those icicles that we used to get for our Christmas trees. Oh my gosh, I'm 100. It's like that. I don't know exactly what Angeline is made out of, and I probably should have looked it up for you. Firestar is extruded, and so the strands are actually round like a hair, and so I think it does blend in a little bit better. It pokes out and sticks out less, which could be what you want and might be what you don't want. Maybe you want it to stick out and kind of poke out and all that stuff, which it's not a bad thing. It's just kind of like what you're trying to go for. I love that you can dye it. I love that because it's made of nylon, it adds strength to your spinning, and it looks so cool when it's spun alone. I personally think it is worth having both if you can. I'm surprised you can't get it, actually. I got a lot of spinning done. Are you guys ready to see the spinning? Because I'm done with questions. I love doing this. I hope you guys will ask more questions so we can do it together more often. Let me quick show you. I'm planning to chain ply it, obviously, to preserve the colors. Thanks for spinning with me, or weaving, or crocheting, or whatever, knitting, whatever you were doing. I love doing these. I hope I can do another one soon. It just depends on how many questions you guys ask. I'll do the same thing and save them up, and when I have enough, we'll make another video. Thanks. I love you. Bye.